So today, this is obviously not the usual setup. I'm not talking to a camera on a tripod for the first time in a really long time. There's only been a handful of episodes where I've actually had someone here, but I recently mentioned it on an episode of Archives that I've hired someone to be my videographer, assistant, editor, right-hand man, whatever you want to call it, and that is Nathan Hirschler. So Nathan is behind the camera right now. Actually, as a matter of fact, Nathan, why don't you kind of introduce yourself a little bit there. There he is, there's Nathan. Basically, Nathan came in today and I wanted to talk about a couple cameras that I've recently bought, a couple Leica cameras, and if you're new here and you just see some random guy on YouTube talking about buying a couple of Leica cameras, you probably think I'm an ass, but these are two cameras I've wanted to try for a long time, and I've used Leica cameras for a really, really long time, and I just love them. There's no denying that. I'm totally biased, but it is what it is. Today, first, before we open up this box, the other camera that I got has actually already been opened, and that is the Leica Mini Lux. This is a 35mm point and shoot camera, and if you're familiar with the channel or me, you've probably heard me talk at length before about I'm just not the biggest fan of point and shoot cameras. I have trust issues with them. For whatever reason, it seems like every couple of years I'll end up buying another point and shoot camera and just try to get myself to like it. But the Leica Mini Lux, it has a 40mm f2.4 lens, but you can also actually choose your aperture on the lens that you're shooting, everything from 2.4 to f16, and then you can also set your manual focus distance if you want to, zone focus or anything like that. It has, a little bit more features than a lot of your kind of common or cheaper point and shoot cameras. This was kind of one of the higher end compact cameras of the time, but it's a Leica, it's a camera I've always wanted to shoot with, and I figured I would go ahead and try and get myself to like it. So I've shot a couple rolls so far. I haven't seen anything from it yet, but so far I've actually been enjoying shooting with it. The viewfinder is pretty small, but so far it doesn't really bother me too much. If I wore glasses, that might be a little bit more of an issue, but small viewfinder doesn't really bother me. It has other things. You can choose different flash settings, exposure compensation, self-timer. All in all, it's a pretty nice, compact little camera, and if I'm skating around town, having my M6 slung over my shoulder as I'm skating, I do it just about every day, but sometimes it's a little nerve-wracking, so being able to have something like this is just a little bit more convenient. So I've been shooting with that. This camera, this is one of those cameras that is like on my bucket list, essentially, with film cameras. It's one that I've wanted since the first day that I saw it, just based on the design itself. But I've never actually taken the plunge. I've always preferred my M6 when I'm shooting with a film camera, but this is a different 35mm film camera from Leica. It's actually not a rangefinder, it's an SLR. So some of you, just based on that alone, you might have a guess as to what's in here, but we'll see. Also, shout out to this box with the handle with care tape, and we've got a nice solid dent there. Gotta love seeing that when you, get a camera in the mail. Also, the lens for this was supposed to be delivered today, and I was in the shower when they tried to make that delivery, so I didn't realize it needed a signature. So tomorrow morning I'm going to pick the lens up, and I'll throw in some footage of that later on in this video. Or actually, Nathan will, because he's the one editing my videos now, which has been amazing. Quick round of applause for Nathan for editing and now filming my videos. So this thing is still in the box. It's not, unopened. It's been opened before, but comes with the box and everything. Inside here we have the Leica R8. If you're not familiar, this is an SLR camera from Leica. They have a long history of R cameras, a bunch of different models, but the R8, just based on the design itself, has been just on my bucket list for a really long time. I feel like it's one of those like love it or hate it kind of designs because it's very, very different from my M6. I wonder if there's like a little certificate on when this actually left. Ah, the date of sale, 97/4/12. So 1997. Oh wow. Oh, it's like, oh wow. Original strap and everything. This thing, aside from what I saw on the eBay listing, this was one of those late night less than sober, we'll say, purchases on eBay, and everything looks absolutely mint. But this design of this camera, just this big, beefy, I absolutely love the design of this. As a matter of fact, let me grab my M6 real quick. It's a little bit different in design in terms of ergonomics and size and everything, but using an SLR, I've recently been shooting a lot of photos with my M10P and the little EVF that you can attach to it, basically treating it like an SLR. And I've really found myself enjoying that for certain uses. One, shooting portraits. I really like looking through the lens for portraits, but I recently took a walk through the woods. I mentioned some of those photos on the last episode of some recent photographs. And using an SLR in that kind of environment was like perfect, but I don't always want to use my M10 for that. I'd like to shoot film with it. So I figured that would just give me enough of an excuse to go ahead and pick this thing up. Okay, oh, batteries. See, I'm so used to my M6, I totally forgot. I need to throw batteries in this thing. 2 CR2 batteries right in here. Nice, expensive, beefy little batteries. And then line that up. Push it into place, and now on the dial up here, your off dial, you basically just rotate that, and then you have manual, aperture priority, program, T for time, and then F. I'm assuming that's what you have to set for flash, but I'll have to look through that later. So let's just hear, ooh, that's got like a thud to it. That is not what I was expecting to hear, but that sounds rad. Yeah, that's sick. So everything from 1/8,000th of a second, which is actually super, super fast for a 35mm camera. Even though this does have the electronics, it's not fully mechanical at that fast, but 1/8,000th of a second all the way down to 16 seconds, and then of course you've got bulb. So a lot of options on the shutter speed there, which again, in a situation like what I was shooting last week in the woods, I like shooting wide open and being able to not have to stop the lens down. So on my M6, if I were to do that, I would have to stop the lens down because 1/1000th of a second is really not that fast for most cases. So with this, being able to get a few more stops on the shutter speed, that's super convenient. And then, you know, manual focusing close up on stuff like that, wide open. One, I wouldn't even be able to focus that close with this camera as opposed to an SLR. And yeah, looking through the lens makes it a lot better for stuff like that. So super excited about shooting with this thing. I guess now we'll cut to tomorrow after I pick up the lens and throw it on there. That way you guys can get a better look as to what this system is like. I went with a 50mm Summicron. Usually with an SLR, for whatever reason, I like using a 50, whereas if I'm using a rangefinder, I typically like to use a 35 as opposed to a 50. So I don't know, it's just one of those things, but this camera offers a lot of different things, everything from like your self-timer, your multiple exposure, your depth of field preview. There's a lot to really like about this camera, but the one thing, again, that really made me want to shoot with it is just the size and this build. It's just this big, beefy design. Absolutely love it. So yeah, I'm excited to shoot with this thing. I'm sure sometime soon we'll take it out and put a few rolls through it and just kind of share the results. Same with the Mini Lux as well. I don't know, they're both 35mm cameras along with my M6, but for whatever reason, I'm just really excited to try out these different options. And yeah, shooting with an SLR again, that's something that from time to time I really enjoy it. And again, kind of knocking this off the bucket list, I had to give it a shot. So yeah, that's it for this video, I think. Was there anything else I was going to mention in this video? Not that I know of. Pretty soon we're going to film a video here in the office just kind of showing a bunch of different books that I've picked up recently, because anytime I do a book video, it would be 45 minutes long if I went through every single new book that I picked up. There's a lot on the shelf that I haven't talked about at all. Some older books that I've had for a long time, and even some of the boards and stuff on the wall. Basically just like a little office show and tell video, because there's always stuff that people see in the backgrounds of videos or different books that they want to know about. So that'll be a fun video just to kind of hang out and talk a little bit about some different stuff I've picked up. But as for today, these are my two new film cameras. Again, both 35mm film cameras. I don't even own a medium format camera right now. I only shoot 35. but lately I've been really enjoying that. So yeah, that's it for today. Thank you guys for everything. I love you. See you next time.